even in 2027, whoever any politician will take the seat, he has to deliver. He has to deliver. Even the politicians that we have at the moment, they have to deliver. For them to be elected or to be re-elected in 2027, and even if someone will come with a manifesto who was not in that seat, want to take the seat, you have to come something that is very right, not cooking stories there that I will do this, I will do this. Something even the Wananchi knows that they cannot do it. That is it for now. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your thoughts, Timo. And what you've said is leading me to my second question, which is, do you think the MPs and the people who are in parliament at the moment, either those who are in support of the government or in the opposition, do you think they have betrayed the people who took them into power? What?
Okay, okay. About the opposition. You see, a politician is a politician. Being opposition, being the government, a politician is a politician. You see, the one in opposition, maybe they are not delivering to their people. Someone in opposition, maybe they are taking advantage. They feel like now we can only blame the government. So right now, the Kenyans they don't trust anyone. Even if the protests that were they were saying that they don't want any politician to be involved because they don't trust anyone. Someone in opposition right now they feel like this is the advantage because you see the government that is right there right now at the moment it's not delivering. So they can take advantage of that. But I will still advise Kenyans to be very wise. Don't be ruled by some. Don't be led by someone who are saying that the government has not delivered. Yet even himself he has not delivered to his people. Even being in opposition or being in government, being in government and maybe opposing the government, a politician is a politician. Let him deliver. But I would say the opposition should not take advantage of the situation at the moment. I would say that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Timo. I'd love to hear from Diba Ali. What are your thoughts? Do you think everyone in government now, especially in the opposition or in the ruling government, do you think they have failed those who put them in power?
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
You asked a very good question. State of the nation. Mm, this nation is in ICU. Let's start from there. Why am I saying we're in a state of we are in the ICU? And by the way, being in the ICU is not such a bad thing per se. It's possibly the opportunity you get for the doctors to really examine you so hard and be able to identify all the wrongs with your body, so that now at least as you get all the medical attention, then you're getting remedied for a waking up. So that now once you get out of your slumber, once you come out of your coma, then you see you're so good to hit the road. I mean, to hit the road running. uh, Here is a nation of here is a nation of 55 to about 60 million people whose economy, whose revenue generated from economy is about 3.1 trillion, like 1.8 trillion going into debt repayment, and you've got about 1.3 trillion left. And of this 1.3 trillion left, you will be so shocked to know that so much of it goes into the current expenditure. The current expenditure we are talking about here is the salaries, the fuels, the repairs, the wear and tear, and all these other things. A question was asked last night, I think, on TV when was there again? This year's for public service was there. 1.3 trillion going into recurrent expenditure. Who are these people earning all this salary? We are about 900,000 civil servants, both at the local and the county levels. So are we really telling Kenyans it's all these 900,000 people who are in the service of the nation, employed by the government at both the county and the national level, earning all this much? You'll be so shocked to know possibly of that, let's say 1 trillion that we've been told about. It's possibly less than 20% of the Kenyan workforce who are going home with this money. So the position we find ourselves in, which is an inflection point, is an opportunity for the government to look back at itself, stand before a mirror and ask itself some serious questions. We are running a very bloated, public service. employing 10 people for an assignment that can very well be taken care of by 3 people, and so many much, a lot of wrongs. You realize government these days flying all over the place, doing so many other things, and yet COVID came and taught us the reality of doing things virtually via Google Space. Right now, we may not even know each other on this space, but, and we could be distributed all across the nation. But until we're not having a conversation, must we be in the same physical space for us to have a dialogue and really, engage in a conversation that will be meaningful in as far as taking this nation places is concerned. And lastly, many times you are told, start small, incrementally grow so much so that by the time you are done with it, by the time you've approached the close of the day, you've gotten yourself so far. Are we approaching government that? Are we approaching our governance and development from that aspect? Uh, we are a nation that is very blessed. You look across the nation, there is Lake Turkana, people are dying there, and yet you've got the water of Lake Turkana just like I don't, I mean, without a lot of benefit to us. You've got Lake Victoria here, and yet you'll be so shocked to know that people in Kisumu don't have water. So the thing is, how is it that we are not blessed with the resource, and we do not have the brains to be able to put all these resources into productivity? I am from Marsabit part of the world. There is Lake Turkana wind power, which was put up and supplying a lot of energy to the national grid. But you'll be so shocked to know that there are a lot of people who are living along that route who are not even connected to the national grid. Why is that the situation? So we really need to look back at ourselves and be able to address some of these things and start getting to understand where did we went wrong, where did the rain started beating us. And once we start having that conversation, we'll possibly get an answer to almost all of the questions that bedevil this nation and be able to start now, unraveling the situation and being able to kind of like, once, in the event, many times we get injured. Once you start just dressing the wound, you may not go far because it will start festering from inside. The biggest approach to dealing with a lot of situation is open your wound, start addressing the deep-seated, malices of that wound and be able to start getting it right from the very bottom end of it, so that now at least uh, you're able to address some of your concerns and progressively build on every small success to deliver your people. Thank you so very much.
Thank you so much for that, Diba. This is Jay Shiko, your co host. And thank you so much for everybody who's made time to come to this discussion tonight. I see we have a lot of people in the speaker panel, so we'll drop you after you submit your sentiments, but you're raising very important issues. And I think I'm just going to ask the next speaker to take it up and tell us what is the state of the nation? How do you feel things have gone since the demonstration started? And what do you think is likely to happen moving forward? I think, Buka, you can take it up.
Yeah, thank you, and congratulations for K24 for organizing this debate on the X space. First, it's important to acknowledge that the events that are happening in our country, Kenya today, are important events to shape our future and also to reflect on the past. But the most important thing that the Kenyan masses and the Kenyan youth have been able to confirm, at least to the ruling class in this country and the politicians, that all power indeed rests in the hands of the people of Kenya and nowhere else. This has been spoken clearly. So the Constitution, Article 1, that actually clearly states that all power belongs to the people of Kenya, and from time to time, through elections, they can, donate that power to be exercised indirectly through the elected leaders like the president. But when the elected leaders violate the social contracts that bind them with the people, then the people can exercise that power directly. So this has been confirmed, and firmly we can see that even the debates, I was watching the debates in the Senate, the senators, even the ones that were arrogant, now the arrogance is gone. The president's arrogance is also gone. But the most important thing we have to acknowledge that even though the arrogance of the president is gone, but the lies continues. We have seen in his last address, and now tomorrow he intends to be on the X space, And yesterday also we watched his cabinet secretary for the defense, who tried to play politics with people's life. For him, according to him, is still very alienated from the the thinking that is in the majority of the Kenyan people. So the second one is that there is a crisis in our country. This crisis is something that the leaders or the politicians cannot solve this time round through talking. Remember, when there is always a crisis in this country, the political leaders from both sides, both opposition and government, they meet together, take tea after people have died, and then there is a return of calm, and then there is peace. But now, what the Kenyan population is telling the politicians clearly, that it is not going to be business as usual. Could you please stop talking and act? That is what the Kenyan people are telling President William Samoei Ruto, that stop talking, stop coming to all these X spaces, stop organizing press conferences in State House, start rolling projects that can give dignity and jobs to the young people in this country. So if he did, because now he was given a red card, but in my own analysis, he was given a yellow card, that just rejecting the finance bill is not enough. The second thing is that he has to start deliberate policies to address the joblessness and the crisis of the youth in this country. If he fails to do that, then he will not need a Raila to overthrow him. He will not need anybody, but he will be overthrown by the people's anger and hunger. Because if people don't have money, they don't have food, the cost of living in the schools are high, then we have to clearly state that this Kenya belongs to all of us. And that is what is happening. Now, on the political side, just as I make my second last point, because I know many people like to contribute to this X space, but on the political side, in my where I sit from, when I see the youths are saying that the movement in the streets today is actually tribeless, it's indeed true that the majority of the Kenyan people view tribe as an instrument of political division, and they are now in the streets, and the ruling class that are used to dividing the Kenyan people along tribal lines are confused, because their propaganda to divide one tribe over the other has been defeated in the streets. The second one, they are saying clearly that we are indeed partyless. What they are actually telling us in Kenya today, that we are partyless because the parties that we have entrusted with power in this country have used their positions to auction the Kenyan people. So to that regard, they are indeed partyless, and also they are leaderless, because look at the religious leaders and the political leaders that have taken center stage in this country. These leaders have only used their position to acquire wealth for themselves. So in actual sense, they street wisdom that they are indeed leaderless, they are indeed partyless, they are indeed tribeless. It's also an awakening that the people are actually demanding organizations and political parties that are accountable to them. They are demanding that each political organization or each leaders that emerge from this struggle must not compromise the interest of the Kenyan people. So our duty is also to advance that debate and tell them that even though the government can fall in the streets, but when the government falls, it ends in the hands of the most organized. So it can go into the hands of the military or the most organized popular civilian forces that exist today in Kenya. So as we continue to call for the state of the nation that Ruto must go, it's also to continue to also mount the pressure on him that if he does not behave as a leader on for the majority of the people, then indeed it has to go. But also the other debate should be, when he finally goes, we do not want to slide, for example, in the Sudanese, where the Sudanese revolution took them to. When the Arab Spring, for example, in the Egypt fell, it fell in the most reactionary class, Muslim Brotherhood. So the call is that each and every person that was on the street, each and every organization that was on the street should consult each other widely to come up with an alternative pro people, program that in the event that the president utilizes his yellow card and it happens to be a red card, because remember, he has not changed much. 200 people, innocent, peaceful people were arrested, paraded to court today. The court said that they are released on free bond. The Kenya police are still holding them in communicado. So this is just defiance of the ruling that was made today in court. Secondly, there are still deployment in the streets. The organized violence of the state is still threatening our peace. And the president indeed we would like him to address this issue through action and not through just speaking. So I think the state of the nation is that it's an opportunity for us to advance as people want a better Kenya together. And it's also an opportunity for the politician in this country to reflect that they should be servants of the people. And also for the majority of us, that are normal Kenyan citizens to reflect how the future of this country be. Because Kenya, we have advanced because of the struggle for the people. Look at the fight for the constitution. People died. The removal of dictator Moi, people died. The removal of the white colonial government, people died. So every time when there is a room to make a change, we have several martyrs in the street. And again, we will see now we have almost 49 martyrs already under this Gen Z movement. So we hope that their blood will not go in vain and our country will move to be a better Kenya. Jay?
All right, thank you so much for that. Yes, thank you, Buka. Thank you for that. And you're saying that the state of the nation is we are in a position to advance and make better decisions for the future. I think I'll invite our co host, Shalom, to just comment on what you've said and also just to introduce himself and take us to the next step of this discussion.
Thank you so much for that. I hope you can all hear me. My name is Shalom Karaoke, and I am a content creator at K24. I would like to agree with Buka that at the point we are at as a country, we are at a point where we have the opportunity to make or break this country. We are at a very volatile situation. We have seen the true power of the people, and our leaders now have a chance to redeem themselves and change the way they have been conducting themselves as our leaders. uh, we have been able to show ourselves, not only ourselves but also the world, how powerful the people can be. I saw a video of the Ghanaian parliament being scared to pass a bill because they were talking about how the people in Kenya rose against it, rose against the finance bill, and how they were able to take back to make a stand. I think this point that we are in has come at a great sacrifice. We've seen a lot of loss of lives. We've seen a lot of injustices, and the way our leadership has been able to talk about it, we have seen that there's a bit of they're a bit scared, if that's the best way I can put it. They've seen that they don't have room to make mistakes, and they've become very careful with the steps that they take. So I think the point we are in is very critical in Kenyan history, and I think that from now on, politics, the face of politics is going to completely change. Yeah, back to you, Shiko.
All right. So we understand that we have members of parliament whose role is legislation. They are responsible for making and amending laws, and then representation. They're supposed to represent the interests of their constituents. And then you have oversight, overseeing the activities of the executive branch and budget approval, constituency development, amongst other duties. So my question is, and this is going to the guru, do you think members of parliament are doing their job, or do you think they have failed Kenyans? And especially if you consider the state of the nation over the last 2 weeks or so. The guru?
Thank you very much, Shiku and K24, for the opportunity given to speak on this forum. You asked the question if the members of parliament will own up to the failures that all along they've been displaying all over. I think they are coming back to their senses. From watching the Senate yesterday, and even hearing all these other guys sometimes on our TV stations talking, you can see there is an element of them sobering up And I think going forward, it will not be business as usual. All these madharaus where people kind of treating the rest of us who are not in those political seats like people who don't think, like people who are just there to be ruled. And I think they've seen that really when people speak up against something, then they need to listen. So I think going forward, things might change a little bit. Was very impressed yesterday, especially with the Senate Majority Leader, Aaron, the way you were speaking. If everyone will speak with that kind of humility, not even humility, but that kind of tone, where people realize like we are all human beings, and it shouldn't matter whether you're a leader or we are just backbenchers like the rest of us here, that all of us should have an opportunity to lead and live a good life. So it should be, and I think I'm very thankful that though this thing has been boiling up for quite a while, because all these ideas, it's only that we had an opportunity to express our displeasure with the financial bill, but things has been boiling up. You could feel and know that there's a lot of dissatisfaction in the country. And as much as the president is trying to give us a picture that even things are not good on his side, but I'm like, why when we kind of touch this kind of finance bill, is kind of sober up and start realizing that there's some offices that they were proposing to budget in a preparation bill, like those one for spouses. Though it's been there, but it doesn't mean like if it was a wrong, that we continue doing the wrong, even when the things are not normal. Because at the moment, people are talking of that the amount of revenues that our economy is generating is not as equal with other economies that are like us, that we are supposed to be generating about 22%. But I think there is something wrong with statistics or something, because we are not feeling that we are middle class kind of economy, though they're saying middle class lower upper, lower, I mean lower starter, but we don't feel it. So we shouldn't. So I think the government should realize that going forward, they should listen more to people, especially when they are making major decisions that comes with taxation and people willing, I mean, contributing or cutting people's money. So another thing which I wanted to make is basically about the quality of the information that we are being fed. As much as social media is for propaganda and all these other things, I always want to think like there's so much misinformation that is happening that we might end up charging like the government. We might end up charging the government with the wrong kind of information. So as much as all these things, it is very hard to monitor and to kind of, there's all over a lot of confusion when it comes to information that's available now. But I want to request everyone to be a little bit careful and counter check some of the information that people are kind of sharing online, so that as much as we are correcting the government, then we correct using the right information, so that when they act, then they're acting on something that is practical, that is workable. Because if you use wrong information or kind of a thing, then even if they'll correct, it might never work. And then another thing which I wanted to say, but I think I've taken quite a lot of time. Let me just give someone else an opportunity to speak also. Thank you, K24. Thank you, Shiko. And thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.
Thank you so much, the Guru, and thank you for your thoughts. I'd also love to hear from Daniel Muli, whose hand is already up. What are your thoughts on the legislators and the MPs? Have they failed those who put them in power?
Thank you, Shiko, and I hope I'm audible enough. Everybody can be able to hear me. Yes, I agree that the members of parliament has drastically failed the people of this country. They have failed totally. And before, let us look at this, the Finance Bill 2024-2025. The first mandamano, before they went to, on Thursday, before they passed the finance bill, the first reading, there were Kenyans on the street and they rejected the finance bill, and they went and passed that bill. After that, when they came for the second reading, despite seeing the emotions that were emanating from the people, that they didn't want this finance bill to be passed, they went and approved it for the second time, for the second reading. That shows that they have their own agenda that is outside the agenda of the people. The people rejected the finance bill, they went ahead and approved it. That means they have failed the people. When the deputy president was speaking, he pleaded with the people to forgive the members of parliament, that they were just following the direction of the party. Then I asked myself a question. If they were just following the direction of the party, why were they paid the 2 million Kenya shillings? Was it an incentive? Was it to bribe them? If you are doing what you are supposed to be doing, then there was no need to be paid the 2 million. So they literally sold the people who they were representing, and they made the decision that were against the people's wishes. They failed us. They failed us as people. Their work is to represent our views, our opinion. So they have failed us. That is my view, number one. Number two, as a nation, we are at a juncture. We are at we are in the cusp of bringing real change that will outlast our lives, the entire of our lives, currently as we are as a country, because we have an opportunity to not only to actually to change the entire system, the entire rotten system of the government that we have. See, the government is so filled with so much corruption. These people they have created a system where they can embezzle fund and protect themselves. That is why you hear of so much scandals costing millions and billions of shillings, yet nobody has ever been convicted of stealing money. Nobody has, that money always disappears somehow. They have so much, they have stolen so much of public money, and nobody has ever been held accountable. Yes, whatever we have started, it has shaken them. But these people are chameleons. I want to correct my brother who has said that now they have come back to their senses. To me, they have not. These people are chameleons. They will change color according to to the environment. Right now, they are seeing the people are upset. They are singing. They are telling us what we want to hear. They are trying to make us they're just playing with our psychology that they have changed. But in actuality, they have not. If you've heard what the Senate hearing yesterday and listened to one senator from Kisii, he said, as he was speaking, I saw a video of around 15 minutes. He was talking about the corruption that is going on in the counties and the national government, how these people import maize from other countries, they import sugar, they have millions of acres of land, how they are buying apartments worth 1.5 billion, they're driving cars worth millions and millions of shillings, they have choppers. These people, they have stolen so much of our money, and till now no action has been taken. I'm just waiting to see the reaction of the president or whatever he will decide to do. But as long as those people are still in government, Kenya will not change. These people have been in government for decades. What happens is that during the electioneering period, they simply change outfits from one party to the next, and they start telling us what we want to hear. If we want to bring change, and real change, is everybody who is in this corrupt system is first of all removed from that system, and a lifestyle audit is done to them actually, such that they are able to prove to Kenyans that These properties that I have, I managed to buy it from the proceeds of this business or from A, B, C, and D. If it is public money they have used to acquire all this wealth, they return it and they are convicted and they are jailed, so that the next people who will take position in government, they will know that if we come here, Kenyans will not play with us. We will not steal their money, because there are real repercussions that tutafungwa, we will go to prison and serve sentence. And because I do not want that, I won't play with taxpayers' money. But if they are still there, if we allow them to continue being there, regardless of who it is, whether it is from MCA to the president, if we allow them to continue serving us, we won't have achieved anything. Look at counties. If you go through the control of budget reports, you can literally see how much money is being embezzled in counties. What are the MCs doing other than they're supposed to be holding the governors accountable? But because we have this corrupt system where they protect each other, they cover each other up, we will not be able to move. But we are in a cusp of bringing real change, if and only if we are able to remove the entire system and we bring in new people. And with that, I yield the mic. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Daniel Muli, for that. You have also touched on a question that I wanted to ask. You've mentioned about the extravagance that has been portrayed by our legislators in how they are living their lives, carrying a lot of opulence. I'd like to hear from Lennox or Lennox. What other ways do you think that legislators should be put to the spotlight when it comes to opulence, when it comes to extravagance? How should the government deal with this? Can you hear Lennox?
No, Lennox, I don't think we can hear you. I think we can move on to another speaker,
Oh.
Priscilla. Yeah.
Okay, let's have Deawere. Oh, all right. Your hand is up, Professor Mitema. What is going on?
I see the
Rita.
the professor's hand is up, but it's like he's not there. Maybe
Yeah.
we hear from Rita.
Yes. Okay, John William.
Okay, thank you. Can you?
You're not audible enough.
Can you hear me now?
Not yet. John? Hey.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, okay. About your question, you've asked about members of parliament, and I feel like the people that we elect are the representatives of who we are as a people. So before the issue of the finance bill, the reject finance bill movement, the Gen Zs, and all these, members of parliament used to operate in a different way because they are actually a representative of who we are as a people. Because before this, they could do whatever they want to do. They could go to bed with the executive because we were not as active as we are in politics as young people. We we didn't believe in politics. We never wanted to engage in politics. But now that we have realized that politics is actually the focal point of everything that we engage in, we have now taken the space. We have become active citizens. Members of parliament are now sort of they're now coming into they have realized that these people are well informed. These people are now active in uh, in whatever the members of parliament and the entire government is doing. So I can say right now we must now expect a very different parliament. You've seen various leaders. I saw Jalango the other day actually giving a speech somewhere, and he actually acknowledged that there's there's a difference even for him as a first member of parliament. The way he came into parliament, which is 2022, and this moment, it is totally two different times. So I believe we elect leaders who represent us. The leaders that are there are representatives of who we are as a people. So we were mediocre before the Gen Z reject the finance bill movement. We were mediocre. We didn't care about politics. Right now, they will represent what we are talking about. They now know we are active, we are there, we are watching, and I think things will be different moving forward. About other things, maybe to just to talk about the president and the reject finance bill and where we are right now. I believe we've been talking so much on social media on what next, how the government is corrupt, how the government should sort of change, and all these things. For 2 weeks. We've been sharing ideas on spaces everywhere. You know, even the Mama Mboga down there, they sort of had an opinion to talk about the current affairs of the country. And I believe it's not good for us now to sort of, vilify the president, vilify the government. As Gen Zs, the way we went to the streets, we were asking for a listening ear from the president. We wanted him to reject the finance bill, which he did. And if you look at the protest after the president rejected the finance bill, we did not go to the streets. The people that went to the streets are the hired goons that we've had. So I sort of feel like we should not sort of bring political differences. We've asked the president to listen. He sort of has listened. There was one person who came before me and said we should not even allow them to hold spaces. I mean, we have to be pragmatic and objective. The same way we hold the government accountable is the same way we as citizens should hold ourselves accountable. Because we cannot just say uh, that we do not want anything to do with this government, because we have to engage the government and the government has to engage us.
John,
We have to
your
listen.
sound inaenda ikididimia. We can't hear you really well.
Oh, someone called me, sorry. So I feel like right now, let us engage, let us be, let us press the government as we've been doing. Let us take that opposition role that we've been doing, but let us now be pragmatic, be objective, and look at what the government is doing. You know, question everything, but in a more respectful way. We should not just be people of anything goes. You know, no. I feel like the Gen Z movement, the real Gen Z movement that we started, is one that is objective, pragmatic, and the one that is going to keep this government in check and make sure that whatever we've agreed, the guarantee, the minimum, whatever suggestions that we give will be sort of considered. And we've seen that. We've seen that the president is actually, putting into consideration the suggestions that people raise. Now, if the things that we sort of came up with will not be considered, that is when now we are always ready to go to the streets. I mean, if today, let me just be honest, if today as Gen Zs we feel like something is wrong, I mean, we will be on the street and we will be heard, because even with the presence of the goons, there's nothing that can stop us. I mean, there were goons in 25th, Tuesday, 25th June 2024, the day when people actually entered parliament. There were goons in town, but still the presence of the Gen Zs could be felt, you know. Yeah, so I feel like we should be pragmatic. Let us give this government maybe a month or two. If things are not working, we are going to press. But let us be objective and pragmatic. Let us not be restive and, you know, put the political differences at the fore. That is my take. Thank you.
Thank you so much, John William. I'd like to remind us all, when you come up to the speaker panel, please make your comments as short as possible. Let me read a comment from one of us on the space. He says, they say, let us start the conversation of problem solving. We are bleeding as a nation. And then Daudi Baro also says, I think we are always pointing fingers in the wrong direction. That's why we don't get any solutions. And as William has said, that, the Gen Zs got out of this to the streets, made their claims, and a few things have changed since then. I'd like to hear from one of our co-hosts, Shalom. Do you think what other way should the young people in the country protest, since there's a presence of goons and excessive force from the police? What other way do you think they should get their voices heard by the government? Shalom.
I think from what we have seen so far, I think as young people, the easiest way is through digital platforms. But then the issue with that is that sometimes these platforms may not be taken seriously by our leaders. But at least we have seen an improvement. We have seen that President Ruto is willing to have a an X space tomorrow and engage the youth. But with this infiltration by goons to our honest causes and our honest protests, I think we need to be able to re-strategize and go back to the drawing board and maybe be able to have a better way of protesting and picketing. I don't think I can be able to answer the question and say how exactly we can do that, but I can see that there's a need for a change. And yeah, and allow me to read a comment that I've seen on the comment section. It says that at Eric Kagiri says, it's true that we have the government to blame, but we should be blamed first and foremost for not checking the track record of our leaders, of the leaders we elected during elections. We did elections on the basis of hope and emotions, which can be manipulated easily. That's just one of the many comments on our section on this Twitter space. But back to your question, I think there is a real need for us to be able to re-strategize as young people to make a new way, to have a new way of demonstrating and picketing. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for your thoughts, Shalom. Liz Nash, what are your thoughts? What do you think? How else should not only the Gen Z, because there are so many people who are in this movement of wanting the government to change certain things. How else do you think they can make their requests known without lives being lost, without property being destroyed, without the Kenyans having to go to a standstill? Liz. Okay, let's have Engineer Richard, because I can't hear Liz. Great. Lennox.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
First, allow me to talk in Kiswahili so that maybe there are some people maybe hawezi sikia wenye tunaongea English, because I have only two issues. Maybe you may agree with me, some, but others you may not agree. On the side of, let me first appreciate our brothers, young men and ladies who decided kukuja nje na kuonyesha our leaders that the power belongs to people. not power belong to leaders. And also let me condole with the family watu wenye walipoteza watoto wao, familia yao, wacha tuwafariji. Pia ya pili ningependa kusema I think the sababu yenye president amefail is because watu wenye wako karibu na yeye. The president Ruto mwenyewe yeye ni mzuri, but wale watu wenye wamecircle president, the advisors, hao ndio wamemislead the president. You remember wakati president Ruto alikuwa deputy, alikuanga na vote sympathy kutoka kwa wengine because wale maadvisors wake wenye walikuwa naye, kama president Ruto angeamua kuchukua wale watu wenye walikuwa wanamsaidia wakikuwa deputy president, I think hii Kenya haingekuwa hivi. But now the president, kumbe wanasemanga mtu kushakaa kwa kiti pao unakaa mjinga or unakaa blind. I don't know place President Ruto alikuja akakosea hadi akapoteza mwelekeo. Reason being, kukuwa na wale watu ambao hawajali maslahi ya watoto wenye wako ama Wanjiku is very bad. So I think the president himself ni mzuri, but watu wake wa ndani. The next thing president anataka kujua, if kama ingekuwa possible, abomoe hiyo kabineti yake venye GNC walikuwa nasema. Wakibomoa hiyo nini yake na atafuta wale watu ambao walimsaidia akiwa deputy president. I think this Kenya haingekuwa mbaya. Hii maneno zote haingetoka. Then watu wako tu hapo kila wakati wana criticize president for what purpose? Hakuna mtu mwenye amenunua GNC. Hii ni wakati wa power. Kila mtu ako na power ya kuongea. So the president need akae chini atafute the real advisors wake, wale wengine atoe hao watu wenye wakatels wako huko. You can imagine a whole MP atoe 20 million. Kwa Kenya gani washaona an MP anatoa 20 million? That is the next. Hiyo ni kitu ambaye ilipea agency wakasiriki because hizi pesa zinatoka wapi? Si ni uwizi. So na hawa watu wa president na hawa watu wake wa mkono ndo walifanya president a mess na wala advisors wake. So I think I wish kama kuna mtu hapa kwa president apelekee president ambie atoe hiyo hao makatels wake wote ashushe chini. Hao wameenda 3 years. Watoe kwani watabembeleza watafanyia nini president? Washakula. So I think it's high time of president to rethink twice. In case tukipata kesho chance ya kuongelesha president, which itakuwa ngumu sana because the mic itakuwa kwa president, wale state controller ndo watatu control. But I wish kama wangeshika jinsi moja ndo ana host president ndo wasitukate, that is will be better. So anyway, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for that, Richard, Engineer Richard. And maybe now that you've mentioned the space tomorrow, your space ya kesho, what do we think is going to be the outcome of that discussion? And haven't we already had enough discussions? Like, I believe that at this point, the president already knows what the problem is. You know, we even had the round table in State House with, what is his name, Eric and Linus and Joe. You know, and we saw how that went. It wasn't any better than the other 2 state addresses that the president had made. So the discussion tomorrow, is it going to be any different?
Yes.
What are we supposed to get from that discussion tomorrow? Just before I give it to
In
before I give it to George. Keep it 1 minute.
Okay, what I know the president kesho atakuja kusema nimesikiza maneno yenu majenzi, so tunataka tufanye, tutatenga. You know the only problem of president anapenda the word tutatenga. I think Luis Kaika aliambia ukweli that you are a liar. Wacha nikuambie Wanjiku wamechoka na maneno ya kudanganya watu. I think the president tomorrow anataka na kuja address zile issues ambaye majenseso walisema is not about ilikuja. Hapana, hatutaki kutenga, tunataka tuone vitu real inafanyika. Thank you.
All right, asante sana for that. And I think back to the question that Priscilla had asked about whether or not we see a different kind of demonstrating and picketing in the country. And I believe I really just want to comment on the factor, or rather on the role of X and TikTok in all of this, because I've seen it firsthand. I've seen the way we've used social media platforms, especially X, to mobilize. X has been quite instrumental in the mobilization beat, and there was a lot of order in and around all of that. There were people even setting up like emergency booths in town, and all of this was organized on X. And I think that's something that we need to consider even moving forward. What kind of demonstrating are we going to be doing? What kind of picketing are we going to be doing? How are we going to be mobilizing all of that? And then I saw on TikTok there was a lot of people use TikTok to spread an awareness on the finance bill and why we're even out in the streets to begin with. So it is definitely a different kind of demonstrating because we're leveraging on the digital economy, or rather the digital space. But there's still definitely more to borrow from the demonstrations that have come before. And we have Sabasaba coming up, by the way. I think that's a good opportunity for us to reflect on the history of the country as well and demonstrations. But Emoru, I'm just going to give it to you, and so that you can comment on what do you think of the progression or any progression we have made in the way that we demonstrate or picket as a country or as young people, because you saw that this movement was actually led by young people. Emoru?
Yes, please. Thank you very much, Jay, for this opportunity. You can hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, great. Even though I wanted to comment on the state of the nation, maybe briefly before I come to your question, that was point number 6. Actually, I was noting all the things you are raising here. The state of the nation, there is confusion, hopelessness, and opportunity. Confusion, you can see even schools. Schools' calendars already been adjusted. Parliamentarians now are running helter-skelter, this way, saying this, turning over here. So there is confusion. Then there is hopelessness from that, from the young people who've really come out very strongly to confront the leadership. So the hopelessness here arises in the manner that they look at the president and they have no belief in him. They have no faith that he can say anything that can change this nation. And seems like they are hopeless in a manner that they only want him out. So any attempts by the president to try and talk to them is not going to change anything in them. And there is a great opportunity, because this is an opportunity for the young generation that has come out very strongly to confront this, and they have been the achievements and the success has been immense. So that's a very great opportunity for them to grab this opportunity, organize themselves, and actually move forward. There will be no. It's not easy to create this kind of opportunity. They have created it by themselves. So if they don't grab this opportunity, restructure, organize themselves, it's going to be very hard to have this kind of opportunity again, where you can really pin down the president. You can see ministers now driving without their flags, pinning them down to that level where they are like giving in to your pressure. It's not going to be easy to get this opportunity again. Now, to your point number 6, question number 6, do you think there is any progression? We've made progress. And I may not answer this question directly, but let me start by saying that the success of these demonstrations came by because the people in power undermined the intensity of the same demonstrations they were following. We had the NIS and the CID officers, they were all over on social media. I have the privilege to interact with most of these departments anyway, and I am aware that they were following everything, but they like brushed it off. There's nothing they can do. Yeah, those are just noisemakers on social media. The same way Museveni talked, that's the mentality of the government. They were thinking that way, and they took it lightly because they were not seeing any powerful forces behind it. So it was difficult for them to prejudge the amount of the success we could make out of this kind of demonstration. That's why we made it. And progression from this level might be difficult to progress to another level, because you see, the art of war, you can never win a war not unless you are organized and structured. When the commander is hit, it's obviously known that so and so takes over after the commander. But here is a group that is partyless, tribeless. Okay, we don't now talk about tribe, but you see, it's partyless. It means that it's not organized. It's just a group of people without anybody taking the mantle, giving instructions that we can do this and that. So from what we've achieved, to move forward is going to be very difficult, not unless all the involved parties come together, reorganize and restructure. Actually pull out of these kind of demonstrations completely, organize and structure yourselves. If you look around, even Israel today is trying to look for the leaders of Hamas to destroy them so that they can kill the war. And actually, we cannot run away from that. I know that this group is fearing to have leaders because they believe they'll be compromised. But you see, you can have a structure and policy in such a way that if they get compromised, you have a lineage of people who follow in immediately. So there can be a lot of progression. And then I also advise those who are resistant to going to listen to the president tomorrow in the X space to actually check in your spirits and go and listen to him. Because usually also in war or whichever, there's always that space. In Kenya, in 2007, we bled very seriously. But if we had not sat down and accepted that, okay, fine, we've lost, there was something on that. Members of parliament are not honest. Politics is an art. And it's going to be very difficult for us to get very honest members of parliament. Even in 20 years to come, it's not going to be easy. Anyone who gets there, because politics is dictated by three main factors. One is popularity, two, the financial power, and then three, political patronage. So most of these members of parliament came into power because they were favored by a certain party, they were sponsored by individuals, and they were, they were carried along. So they will serve their interests. Others were financed, and they are now, others use their own resources. They are not trying to get back this money. Others borrowed even loans from banks. And then there is this populist politics. That's why we have very rogue politicians who can say anything. You even saw the governor of Nairobi being kicked out of office because of arrogance, just because he played populist politics. Even Babu Owino Short, another person, is still a politician. When you see people like Jalango, they are in parliament, they are not themselves. They just go there because of populism. And that's the same thing politicians like Sifuna are playing today, populist politics. They are not honest in anything, trying to expose what they have been earning and receiving all along. They are only trying to steal the moment. So it's going to take us a lot of time to actually realize a difference. But my advice would be that we steal the moment, let the young people come out and confront the elections, get positions. Once we get a majority of people who have a good will, then that's the moment that we can be able to address issues and change the nation. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you so much, Amori
Hello?
Moses, for that. Thank you. Thank you, Moses. Yes, we've heard you. And thank you so much for the wonderful submissions. I think I'll give it to Grace. We haven't yet heard from a lady tonight. So, Grace, I'll give it to you. And then after Grace, we can have a Ruthie. You can comment on what Amori had to say or on any of the discussions or topics that we've had tonight. And also just let us know, what do you think what are we going to do now? And I think we've talked, or rather, Emoro has mentioned something to do with compromises, that either side has to make compromises. But from where I'm sitting, I feel like the citizens has already compromised enough. And even when you talk about austerity measures, the austerity measures are only applied or applicable to the citizen, but not to the political class. So who exactly is supposed to be making compromises moving forward? Grace.
Yes, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. Good evening. Can you hear me?
Grace. Yes, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
Yes. So apparently, on my side, I think my view might be radical, or rather opposite of everything. First and foremost, for the youth and for anybody who is in here who is on this government side, for Gen Z, we are not against paying taxes. Because from what I'm currently seeing is that people are peddling this lie that the Gen Zs don't want to pay tax, they are against any tax being imposed. We are very much willing to pay tax. The only thing we really want as Kenyans is having our taxes working for us, working for every Kenya, Mama Mboga, the Boda Boda guy, the CEO, everybody to feel that my taxes are working for me. Because currently, the regime that we are in, we feel that the taxes are only working for a few. The people who can afford to carry 20 million and go give in a Harambe. Come on, have you ever seen somebody like the CEO of Equity? He's one man that inspires me so much. Have you ever heard him going to Harambee and even giving 20 million at one go? He knows very well that he has a balance sheet to balance. So if he gets out that 20K and gives in a Harambee, he knows his balance sheet will not work. I think our political class needs to know that Kenya is like a private company that has a balance sheet that needs to be balanced, whereby people cannot just afford to be stealing money, getting away with it, and making Kenyans suffer. Again, it is quite embarrassing for all the people in power that it had to take young kids to show you that really you have come too much. And actually, for them saying that they have compromised, I feel they have not compromised. They are not remorseful about anything they have done or anything that has happened. This is just a face that they are putting currently. And the moment the fire goes off, things go back to normal. Because there's one thing that I've realized in Kenya: if there is anything we are good at, is putting things back to normalcy very fast. We just wait. If we don't even have the demonstration 1 week, the next week you'll see this X space full of their bigoters just shouting and yapping and posting all these things. After all, what will you do to us? And I think we also need a culture change in Kenya, whereby me and you, we need to start the small changes in our own small capacity. Because the rot that you're seeing in our parliamentarians or even our political class is just an amplification of the small corruptions we are having in ourselves. A good example, I deal a lot with NTSA. Go to NTSA today and place an order to get a number. Utaanza kuambiwa kizungu mingi ya kwamba ni lazima umelipa 3,000, hiyo ni ya serikali. Tupee yetu ya macho ndio tukusukumie hii namba itoke haraka, o sijui nini. Some shenanigans that you cannot even understand. And you ask one simple question: why should I be paying you an extra coin for you to do the job that you are employed to do? Most of the people here who work even in the private companies, are you really tipped to work your job? You report at 8, leave at 5, do your job as per your JD without requesting for kickbacks. But when you look at the government services, it has become like being a Kenya is the biggest crime you can ever do, because you have to literally beg for everything. Now, they are telling our kids to go outside Kenya and apply for jobs. How many of the Gen Zs here who are complaining right now, they have applied for passports? But because kama hawana pesa ya kusugua watu migongo na mikono na sijui miguu wafanye kazi, they are yet to get their passports. So even though we are saying that we need to really have a change in this country from the politics, we also have to do a small culture change, mindset game, whereby we all have to change our thinking to doing what is right all the time and doing what is expected of you without being pushed. And that culture, it can be incalculated. And let us not think that Kenya is badly off. Kenya is not in ICU, as I tell you. Kenya, there is so much potential. There is so much money. There is so much revenue that is collected. It is only that it is wasted. And Kenya can be salvaged if we all sit down, not talk at each other, but talk to each other, agree on the little adjustments. To me, the irreducible things that we should be talking tomorrow in the X space is that the cabinet should be reshuffled, or even some people should be kicked out. Can we have a cabinet of technocrats working just like Kibaki did? Uhuru knew very well he had his own shortcomings. He had a cabinet of technocrats. And can the government know that rewarding your cronies, your friends, your allies, your fellow thieves, it is not going to take him anywhere? And to Ruto, he needs to know that in his cabinet, if he sits down and do the soul searching as he told us on Sunday, he will look at all those people and look at their CVs and see he did not award them those jobs because they qualified for them. He was giving them as a way of rewarding them for having enabled him to become the president. And that's why nothing is working, because we are being run by hooligans, people who think and only think about themselves. But if you're having technocrats, you can hold them to answer. But when you have people who you owe allegiance to, you owe a favor to, even in our offices, when you start owing a favor to your boss, it is no longer workers. It is no longer business as usual. So I think I am so impressed by the Gen Z for the movement that has begun. And I'm saying that we have to push on and just inculcate this culture change, because that is what we need in Kenya. Everybody in Kenya needs to do a culture change, where we want to do things the right way from the beginning to the end. And then when we come to elections, let us not give people votes because you think they are famous for the act, they do these stupid things. Can you look at this person like a CEO? We are getting a CEO of our constituency. This man, does he have integrity, or this woman, do they have integrity? What are their principles? What are their cause? And out of that, I think we shall go hosting this space where we can talk and just express ourselves, listen to people. It's really a great avenue, and keep up K24. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Grace, for your thoughts. Very candid points there. We have Aruthi. Aruthi, are you in agreement with Grace? She says that we need a whole sort of a system reset. What do you think about that, Aruthi?
Hello, everyone. I think the lady before me said so much of what I wanted to talk about, so I back him up. I back her up. Sorry. The state of the nation right now. There are a lot of unhappiness. Many people are upset. We are sad. But at the same time, that we are sad because not so much has been done until now. But at the same time, there's some positive things, stuff to point out, that we are courageous, we are fearless, and we must be proud of ourselves. This has shown us that even if in the future things are not doing well, we can stand up and we can do something. There's a feeling of unity, and there's also a feeling of belonging that has that I feel from deep inside myself. I personally am not in Kenya, but I protested where I was because we are one. Yeah. On the other side, you had asked earlier about the talk tomorrow. You had mentioned that, and I'd say that that is Ruto's. I feel like it's Ruto who needs to make a compromise. We have made a compromise for the very many years. We have gone to the streets. Some have lost their lives. That's a compromise. So we have compromised 1,001 times. It is time for Ruto and his government, for Ruto himself, to compromise this time round for the Kenyans. The Kenyans have already talked. So when I think about tomorrow, I personally don't expect that there'll be something new that will be said. I'm one person who doesn't like to hear the same thing 1,000 times, especially if it's a problem. When you've said 1,000 times, people have been shouting out there. People have been on the streets 1,000 times. You've heard it. He had interviews. He had this and that. He had talks with the church leaders, and. Then there's nothing much we'll be expecting tomorrow than the very same promises, lies, and things like that. So my wish tomorrow is that he comes and compromises for us and says, I'm even expecting that he says this and that, but I think it's also a lie. You see, I don't have trust for him anymore. I don't trust him anymore, unfortunately. So we just need to see the real change, the real thing happening. We are tired of kuskiza, kusema, kutenga, kupanga. We are over this. We are past this. It was a phase. And we are already out of this phase. We need to make another step forward. Yeah. So he needs to compromise for the Kenyans. We have compromised enough. We've compromised with poverty. We've compromised with our education. We've compromised with our lives. We've compromised with sicknesses. We've compromised with 1,000 other things that we cannot mention. We cannot mention all. Yeah. So I believe it's also time for us to remain vigilant. This should not be the end of it. We should not weaken ourselves. Hata kama maybe hakutakuwa na maandamano in the future, the next coming weeks, I hope we remain vigilant as a movement. I don't call it really a Gen Z movement because I'm a millennial and I'm really in this to 100%. So the Gen Zs showed us the way. Actually, they were on the front line and opened the door for us. So we are together in this. So we have to remain vigilant, and I'm hoping that the future government, some of the future whoever comes in power, shall always. Sorry, I'm coming. I'm landing, Paul. Yeah. So we have to remain vigilant so that we make Kenya a better place. And something else I also wanted to mention regarding tomorrow is that I'm not very sure how Ruto could get this, but tomorrow's sitting, I guess it's Ruto's problem, because we've already expressed our problems, and him coming to us, he's the one we are the court and he's the accused here. So I think he is the problem, and unfortunately, many of the young Kenyans, many of the Kenyans don't have internet access, don't have hiyo pesa ya imagine tanua bundles ama tanua food, they go buy food. So I wish that the space tomorrow would have been made free of charge for everybody, yeah, to join in wenye wanaweza kujoin. Yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Aruthi, for your thoughts and for your comments on the topic of today. I'll have Shalom read a few comments, and then we can go to our last question, and then we can start winding up.
Thank you so much, Christina. I'm just going to read a few comments that I've seen on the comment section. At Abala Mitema says, my worry comes when CSs are appointed in areas that are not aligned with their professional background. It's all about name, fame, and closeness to power. Will such deliver competently? Another comment says, at T Boychild says, we should transfer some critical constitutional powers from the National Assembly to the Senate, because seemingly there are more sensible legislators at the Senate as compared to the National Assembly. At Real Politic 247 says MPs should change unless the MPs won't change rather unless they are put under intense pressure. If we slacken a bit, they will be able to relapse back to their comfort zone. We shouldn't expect someone who earns more than 20 times of what an average Kenyan earns to identify with the needs and feelings of the masses. Last one I can see is that at Otieno Celestino says Kenya faces economic challenges, but Gen Z's involvement offers hope. The energy and innovation can drive growth, tackle unemployment, and address social issues. With proper support and opportunities, Gen Z can transform Kenya into a prosperous and equitable nation. As I go to the next question I'm going to ask, the last and final question as we close, is that what is next for Kenya and what is next for this new phase of politics? What is next for conversations? We have seen that Ruto is willing to have an X space, but as the previous speaker said, not everyone is able to access this space because some people don't have internet connectivity and such issues. So what is next in the face of politics? Yeah, that's the next question.
Lennox.
Hello, can you hear me now? Hello.
Yes, we can hear you. We can hear you.
Yeah, initially I was given a chance, but there was a problem with my mic. But what is next simply is we just have to move the goalpost. I feel like we've won as the people of Kenya. I feel like we've achieved something. These people have seen us in a different light. I feel like the MPs right now, like currently in Nairobi, you don't seem to see them everywhere. They are not hosting live TikTok sessions as they used to. Even in clubs, you don't see them anymore. So it simply means they are hiding and they can no longer be seen in public before, or let's say pre-maandamano. Because currently, even the previous speaker said that they are the cabinet secretaries are no longer moving with flags on their vehicle, because they know if there's a flag on the vehicle and the citizens see this is like a mark, a target on their back. So I feel like the next thing is they have felt us, they have seen us, and I feel like we should just pick a issue, the issues that probably were being put out in social media. I think we need to pick them one by one. Like for example, health is a big issue in Kenya. Health is a big is something that we should think of making it a national issue. For example, there's no need for us to be putting money for health in the national government, yet it is a devolved function. I mean, you have a budget for health and the same time you're devolving it to the counties. It is not completely making sense. One last point is that if you look at health in county governments, you'll find that a hospital is making money. For example, the money the patients pay to be seen or to be taken care of, and the money still goes back to the county assembly. Then they take whatever they take, then give the hospital back change. Like, for example, a hospital can make 30 million, take 30 million, then give them 5 million. And at this point, you find that the hospitals are not progressing enough. They're not able to buy their own medications. They're not able to hire on their own, simply because we're having double functions, or simply because the leaders we have don't see a point whereby the hospital can be able to manage themselves. So I feel like the next chapter in this movement should be taking one issue at a time. These MPs can see us, the president can see us, the leaders in this country, let me not call them leaders, the representatives of this country, they know that the people are watching them, the people are going to be coming for them whenever they don't come back and give us what we elected them for. So this thing of calling them leaders, I feel like it is giving them too much power, to the point of making decisions that benefit themselves rather than the people. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lennox, for your thoughts. I'd like to hear from Apostle Solomon. What next? What next? What do you think? How do you think the youth should package themselves when they're asking for changes from the government and also for the church? There has been, claims that the church has been very silent during this time. So I'd like to know what next for even the church.
Good evening, all. First of all, I would like to pass my condolences to those who've lost their loved ones. It's very sad that we've lost very many young people just because of speaking the truth. And let me just start by saying I am so proud of Kenya for what is happening right now. It has taken many years for us to get to this place where now we are discussing government. It has been an issue that the opposition have been dealing with and a few individuals, but now the nation is talking about it. Now, I'll start with ourselves, the church. Yes, I agree. It has appeared to be as if some of us have taken sides, and we are running to the president and not running to those who are hurt and those who have lost their loved ones and all that. Yes, I agree. And maybe I think it's a high time that we also take even our church leaders to account, because the question is, when the church goes out there to speak to the president and tell him this is a position of the people, which people did they consult? I think it's a fallacy that has to change. People need to have proper discussions on matters to do with leadership, because my fellow contributors said, we have people there in leadership positions, but they are not leaders. We have people in leadership positions. I don't want to talk about representatives. There are people in leadership positions who are not leaders, because leaders are selfless. So I pray that God helps us all to soul search and get back to order, even as a church, and do what is right, and be in the middle of things, not taking sides, because you are the ones who need to give the voice of reason. Secondly, it was very sad for me to see a CEO of a nation who has a security meeting almost every day, I believe, who did not know that a young boy was killed and had been shot with 8 bullets. Again, he did not know even the standing of our books. He doesn't know how much do we owe, as we see right now. How much does Kenya owe out there? Our president did not know. He says he needs 1 month to give us information. So you wonder what kind of a CEO is he? So he needs to pull up his socks also and take his job seriously, because now we are getting to a place where you're going to be accountable in every way. And to add to this also, you remember even Duale when he was interviewed. Duale also did not know about the boy, and he's the Minister for Defense. So it is very sad that we have people in leadership positions who don't know what they are doing. So may God help us. And also in regards to how the young people are going to follow up, I think it's important for us to continue with the same momentum and make sure that we follow up issues. Like, for example, we have sufficient evidence as it is now that the issue of bribing has been rampant in parliament. So it is high time that we follow up even the sanitization. As the president was being asked about Linturi, he was talking about he went through a process. The question is not what was done, but how was it done? Because if it is done the wrong way, we don't expect good results. And another issue that I have to raise is that the young people should also be very keen to follow up these matters, even legally, because most of what we are talking about is just verbal. We need to get back to the law, get back to the constitution, and know in which space can we deal with these issues. And everybody has to be accountable, including the judiciary. The judiciary is also being said to be very corrupt, and it is high time that we also hold them to account. So I believe that this nation will only change when we get serious. How do we allow people with fake certificates to continue acting in high spaces where they make decisions that people who are more knowledgeable than them are supposed to make? People who are more qualified than them are supposed to make. So I think we should also think about recalling even the senators and the governors and everybody else who we know very well that their academic record is questionable. So us as a church, I'm speaking to the church now, we have to play the role also of educating the church, because it is not right for us to just go and speak to the president. On what grounds are we speaking to the president? Did he ask for our help? Because as it is right now, there is much talk, but what the president really needs to do is to do what he needs to do. You cannot go to a restaurant and have a discussion with the cook and the waiters. They know what they're supposed to be doing. They're supposed to be serving you with a meal. If they don't know that, they're the wrong place. They need to be recalled. So I believe let us keep firm and steadfast and stick to what we are doing. I don't believe that we need to get leaders at this stage, because if they identify leaders, it's going to weaken this movement. As it is, let us just raise issues and let the government respond. That is my take. God bless Kenya.
Thank you so much, Apostle Solomon. Let me read one comment from Kimani Kamau, who's on the space. I can see him on the space. He says, I'm sure that many Kenyans will agree with this. We want a timeline of when IBC will be reconstituted, not less than 2 months. He should not be the one who reconstitutes it, and would suggest that LSK could do this task if it is possible. The issues of CAS should be resolved. During the round table, he said that the president said that he's going to reconstitute the IBC within 10 days. It has been 4 days. We're still waiting to see what happens. But I'd like to hear from my co-host Jishiko. What action points do you think as Kenyans, as the youth, should take in order to keep these legislators and the president and just the government in general in check?
I think I'm going to give you one answer and then give it to David, because David has been requesting to speak. And actually, there's a comment or a few comments from David that I'm going to read just before he comes up. So David is saying that I believe Emory Moses is wrong. This is when Emory Moses was talking. There are standards, but Africans do not follow these standards stated in the Constitution. And then he says that Africa is the only continent that hasn't gone through a reconstruction. This is why we are struggling with corruption and poverty. Until we tear down the system, we can no longer go forward. We need this to form a new future. And he says that I hope Ruto brings solutions, not excuses. And I think the only thing that we can do now as young people is continue voicing our discontent. Let's continue. Let's not relent. We can't be out on the streets every single day, but let's continue spreading this awareness. And I see there's a lot of talk on the TL, especially about civic education. I think that's a really good place to start. And you are seeing even in these demonstrations, there are people who are coming out to actually try and educate people in their mother tongue, so that everybody is aware of what we're talking about. So civic education, civic education, civic education. Let's take an interest in civic education. I think that's one of the best places for us to start as young people, because you'll notice that before before we went out to the streets, actually, before that, a lot of people were actually not politically inclined, but we've seen a huge difference between the young people of Kenya. Like the difference these 2 weeks have made has been immense, and there has been a lot of political interest now and a lot of political talk. People are actually sitting down on a Saturday to discuss politics. People are sitting down to watch the Senate proceedings. People are sitting down to watch the president give a state address. I think this is a really good place to start. It's a step in the right direction. So for me, I'd say civic education. But David, do come in and tell us what you think.
Hey, this is David. For me, what I wanted to start out with is that the problems with Kenya do not just start from the government. They are underlined from the bottom because the government hasn't educated the citizens, and this is not just from the bottom to the top to the ground. The government, when you look at civic education used to be a part and parcel of our educational system growing up, but then that was removed, and look at what's happened. A lot of corruption, a lot of citizens do not understand what the government is supposed to do. Instead, taking what the politicians give us, and that is what it has. Secondly, the one of the points that I put up earlier was that the Africa is the only continent that hasn't gone through a restructuring. What does that mean? The Europeans went to the Renaissance period. The Americans went to the Great Reconstruction after the Civil War. The Asians went through the Great Reopening when China and Japan opened up their economies to the world so that they could come in after being impoverished for many years. And you look at Africa, Africa is the only continent where the leaders have held the people back from expressing themselves to the world. How? By not allowing the youth to be able to take up leadership positions and forcing the youth to only be within the constraints of what politicians want. You look at Ruto. Ruto is a product of the YK regime. Ruto came into power through in 1992 during the Moi regime, during the YK regime. Most of the leaders that are in power right now were part of the YK regime. We are still being led by the people who were in the Kanu regime. If you look at every single MP, they have footsteps or they are in their growth into politics comes from the regime that in 2002 people fought and broke down. But the thing that we did not do is that we did not clear out all the people from that regime. Instead, we just switch parties. Okay, today it's NARC, tomorrow it's UDA, tomorrow it's Azimio. All we do is just switch parties and say, "Oh, this is a new party. These are new people." That's why the president will come and tell the citizens that the previous regime, and you're like, "What do you mean by the previous regime? You were the vice president of the previous regime, and what the previous regime did is on your hands." Thirdly, what I want to say is that I believe that once we go through the reconstruction that Africa dearly needs, there should be a separation of church and state. The government should not be consulting the church on national issues, because that's where the problem comes out. Because the church itself in Africa has shown that it does not have integrity. It can be bought out. That's why a lot of Harambes, where do they happen? In the church. Where do these people take these 20 million, 10 million, 50 million and go and distribute it? It's in the church. The church itself should reconstruct as the government itself reconstructs, because the church has allowed the politician to walk into church and preach his lies to the people for votes and for kickbacks. A lot of people, I'm not saying anything against the apostle who spoke earlier, but I believe that when we are having a national conversation about corruption and reconstruction, the church should take a back seat, because it has been the facilitator of most of the lies that politicians have spilled every year. If you go on TV every day, you find a politician speaking. It's either at a church service or at a burial session. The sanctity of the church has been infiltrated by the politician to the point where the people cannot believe the church. The Gen Z does not believe the church because the church has corrupted itself and allowed the politician. That's why a couple of days ago, when the president called church leaders to the to the to the state house, I was on these spaces saying that church leaders should have said no. You have to speak with the people that elected you, because the church did not elect the president. If the church wants to help this process, then all they should do is provide the space where there is no fighting, there is no arguing. There's only supposed to be the facilitators, but have no voice. They should be neutral to the point where even when the president calls them into state house to say, hey, I would like you guys to go talk to the Wananchi, they're supposed to say, no, Mr. President, you were elected by those Wananchi. So you are supposed to talk to them by yourself. Do not be the middleman, because that is what the church has been for so many years. The church has been the middleman between the government and the people. And that is where the church has allowed corruption to seep into its institution. So what I would say is that Africa, it is high time. Kenya, it is high time we go through a reconstruction. The politicians, how many politicians do we know of who have scandals? I can name one that the president had. The 2000, I think so, it was 2011, if not 2011, 2008, Gong forest land scandal. And he got kicked out of government because of it. But he did not go to prison because he was a politician. Because if you lock him up, what will happen? There will be riots in his place. So the government, and he was part of that government at the time. So we as Kenyans need to introduce that integrity should be the number one determining factor for you to be elected into office. If you have been compromised, if you have had a scandal put in your name, you should not even have the right to run for office. If you have been seen to be favoring your tribesmen, because let me tell you one thing, if you go overseas, nobody cares that you're Kikuyu, you're Luo, you're Kalenjin. They say you're Kenyan. When you come back home, that's when we are divided. We stand as one, or we fall as divided. We are all Kenyans. We are all brothers and sisters born. We have lived with each other in this country. We live with each other. We pay taxes to benefit each and every one of us. We don't pay taxes. That's why when MPs go to the rural areas and say the reason why I'm in government is because I want to build a road, and the road never comes. You ask yourself, why doesn't the road ever come? Because that politician is not there to build that road. He's there to get the bribes that will come from the government that will allow him to generate votes. So for now, from now on, we Kenyans should not be counted as votes, but as investors. Africa is the only continent where we invest in our countries and take losses. Even if you were today, if you're a gambler and you were putting bet after bet after bet on this one team, if you're an Arsenal fan, if you're a Manchester United fan, and you are heavily invested in Manchester United or heavily invested in Arsenal, and they keep losing, you're gonna be like, yo, I gotta switch teams. I gotta go to another team so that I can be able to find pride in supporting something that has a goal. Africa doesn't have a goal. All we do is collect taxes and borrow and borrow and borrow, and we are drowning the continent every year. That's all I had to say.
Thank you so much, David, for your thoughts. We are about to wrap up. I'll give one more person, Enoch. I'll give Enoch a chance to speak. I'd like you to tell us, in your opinion, what way forward should we take as a country? The president has asked for dialogue tomorrow on an X space. Do you think this is the right way to go? Tell us. Iraq, you can unmute your mic.
Thank you, Shiko, for this opportunity. I think as the way forward, as the president gets to have an engagement tomorrow, I think it should. I don't think we really need to keep on having this conversation again, because already we have expressed, our disappointment. So the only thing the president should be coming to tell us is, this is what I have done, and this is what I'm going to do exactly as at now. But these stories of him coming telling us that we will do, it's not gonna really help us. And then on the other side, for us to continue with this momentum, I think we are dwelling too much on the CS, but go down even into the county government, go down even into the constituency. There is a lot, because just explain to me why would we have like 15 street lights, from Nyayo to Rongai, and the few that we have in between, they are at Weston. Like, who has chewed the money for the street lights? Opposite NHIF, we have a very big pothole, and it's so disappointing that Sakaja will keep telling us here that Nairobi in a work. Why? That road leads to government offices. We have a very big pothole towards Upper Hill. Like, are there no people who see this from the government side? And I think I'm calling, this is a good platform, being hosted by the media. And I think it's high time, as we also take a break maybe from the demonstration. What we can do as citizens is to make sure that wherever you go, anywhere, and you find this is a miss, take a picture, post it online, and let even all the other media houses now start even exposing these things. Because, like, how should we have such potholes within, even not necessarily that we should have potholes in other places, but just try to imagine a very big pothole towards government offices, even along Alfie House, very shoddy road, and yet the government is overspending. Like, for example, if you do a very good research, you get to find we have like so many ghost workers in this country, starting with the county government all the way to the national level. These are some of the things that the president should be coming out tomorrow telling us, that I have done this and this and this, but not these stories of we shall do. And I think that's my take for tonight.
Thank you so much, Iraq Music. Now, finally, Ukweli. Timo, your hand is up. Tell us your thoughts.
I was asking, was the tribalism discussed? Maybe that was my question.
We weren't discussing about tribalism today. Yes, we weren't discussing about tribalism today. Dan, your hand is up.
Okay. Many thanks for granting us this opportunity and for hosting this forum. I also use this opportunity to pass my condolences to the families that lost their loved ones. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Mine will be by way of questions. First, I would make a comment that let's accept the gesture by the president to hear what he says. It's normal, even in any court, to accept to give even the guilty person opportunity to share their side of the story, regardless of whether we feel they are guilty. So let's give him the chance. Let's see to whatever he will say. no matter how we feel. But my contributions will be by way of questions, which I will ask all of us to ask as ordinary Kenyans. Wherever you are, every day when you wake up, on all critical aspects of our governance, what is really working in Kenya? What really works? I mean, even in companies, even when you drive a car, you should ask yourself, what is working in my car? Are the tires working? So that you can see and sense check its health. Are my lights working? Is the ignition working? So, as a Kenyan, we need to ask ourselves, wherever we are, is our health working? When you go to the hospital, are you sure and guaranteed that you will get good treatment? When you have an issue with your documentation, ID, registering for a business, getting your motor vehicle license or anything, are you confident when you wake up in the morning that the process will work, all will go through and will come out successful? If you have an issue with the judiciary or in court, will you be sure that justice will be served and you will end up getting justice? Are you sure that the judgment will come out? I mean, I'm talking of an ordinary, normal walking Kenyan on the street. Are you sure when you present an issue in a court with the judiciary that justice will be served? Are our laws designed to deliver justice, or are they designed to manipulate and kill justice but render some kind of judgment out there? Be it labor laws, be it any law that is in the criminal justice system, anything in the court. Are you sure when you go that justice will be served? In our investigative agencies, are we sure the DCI, the ODPP, ESCC are serving in the fight against corruption? When we go to our schools, are our schools and the education sector working? Is CBC working for those that have children? Do you have hope at the end of this education that once your child gets into that baby class or kindergarten, the journey will be okay all through up to the end, especially if it's in a public school? Are our police providing security, preventing, or are they abetting crimes or the source of insecurity? Is our agriculture working? Because these are the key aspects of our economy. In the overall, is our economy healthy? It's like you're running a business. You can sense check your business and say, I'm making profit. I'm able to pay my staff. I'm able to get something out of it. The operations, the processes, the way I supply my customers. Now, our economy, we are paying taxes because that is the capital that we put into our government, which is like our business. And then in the process, are we also able to do things that are working well? Then is everything okay? Is everything okay in terms of the health of our economy? Are our taxes serving us? If you pay tax, be it is a town up as a Nairobi, are you jumping on sewers? Are you walking over garbage in the streets? Are the streets clean? Are lights operation? I mean, just normal order. It's like your house, you pay for electricity, you pay for water. Is your tap okay? The very, very basic things, yeah? Because these are things that should be done by our government. And very importantly, you as a citizen, wherever you are seated, looking at yourself, your family, and even fellow citizens, as you look at today and tomorrow, do you have fear and apprehension, or do you have hope that things are going to be better in the future if the status quo is maintained? Are our men and women in positions of power and authority humans that are predisposed to do evil or to do good? When you pick any minister that you have, any MP, do they look like people presented with two different conflicting things? One that leads to something bad or harmful to the citizen, or something that is good for the citizens? Which one will they choose? And very important that is not being discussed, but is even much bigger. It's being mentioned slightly and in a small way, but it is even the big mammoth in the room. Going out into the geopolitical, the socio-economic arena, out there in the big world, are our leaders championing and pursuing our interests or the interests and agendas of external interests and parties? You remember the whole story of the finance bill? We've had the issue of the World Bank, the IMF, and all that. Is that finance bill designed to serve the interest of Kenyans or other parties? Was it ours or was it for other parties? Then, sitting back as a citizen, is our society modeled to reward merit or mediocrity? You have two people, one that is mediocre in your perspective, and one that is that has merit. We had a very important statement for those who are very keen at the funeral of the late Ogola, which was said by our president. He said that when he requested for names to be given to him to become the commander in chief, it's called what? The commander of the military, yeah? That he received names, but he never received the name of Ogola. But Ogola was the most qualified. So imagine a situation where people know who the most qualified candidate is, but when they are told to nominate somebody, they don't nominate it. This is not coming from me. It was in the public eye. So imagine positions are coming up everywhere. There are candidates that are qualified, but they are not being nominated or considered for opportunities. It is the people that are not, for whatever reason, that are given. So my question is our society one that rewards merit or does not? Are our people, does it pay to do good in Kenya or to do bad? Whenever you look at somebody who has succeeded or driving a big car or something like that, doing investments, if you follow them, are they people who are noble, who did good, that deserve reward? When somebody is made a CEO in an organization, is he somebody that contributed positively in the development or success of that organization, or normally it is never that person? That person is sidelined. And then somebody once opined to me, and this was very sad and painful. Picture our political class or leadership class seated in some private meeting as fellow human beings, drinking or eating or just socializing. If you pick a percentage of what they are discussing, is the majority or the dominant part of the discussion about things that are good and for the prosperity of the country, or it is about the deal they are going to do there, who they need to kill, who they need to destroy, or who they need to reward? And is that person being rewarded the good one or the bad one? And lastly, a very critical thing. When you look at our leaders, wherever they are, because we also have intuition, we can judge, we have sense, we can look at fellow human beings. Wherever they are, be it an MCA, be it an governor, be it all through anybody in position of leadership, when you look at them, the majority of them, are they men and women of principle and people that revere and fear God? If we have to look at all that, then it is enough for us to clearly know and assess the situation of our country, and not only today, but the journey ahead. What type of characters does our system allow to become MPs? Is it the good person that will give good policies, that will give good ideas, that will prosper the country, or not? Paul, I've taken a lot of time and I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dan. And that brings us to the end of tonight's space. Thank you so much to everyone who has come up to the speakers panel, everyone who has written their comments on the comments, those who have been silently following the space. We don't take it for granted. Thank you so much to my co-hosts, Jay and Shalom. Thank you very much for honoring our invite. We usually do this every Thursday from 7:30 p.m. My name is Priscilla Wahio. Kindly follow us on all our social media platforms at K24 TV and at K24 Plus. Have a lovely evening. See you next week, same place, same time, and keep safe.